how are you going to sell 10 years from now? I tried to create like my original inkling with RB2B was like, it'll be a lower churn buyer persona if I start with mid-market, and I'll be able to because I have a brand with these people because of LinkedIn. So I'll just do it that way. Then the content was working so well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to future-proof this thing. How do you future-proof this thing? One-to-many selling from a founder brand and a freemium offer. It's all selling itself, right? Like, let's see how far we can push that. Right. Like, and the nice thing about not having investors is when that stalls out, like there's no one telling me to go hire a bunch of expensive go-to-market people to try to get it going again.
And we're back for another episode of the Startup Hustle. This is your host, Matt Watson. Very excited to be joined today by Adam Robinson, who's the founder and CEO of Retention, and has a hot new product called RB2B. He's waving here on the video. If you're not watching this on YouTube, check us out. So before we get started, remind everybody today's episode is brought to you by Fullscale, which is my company. We help people build software development teams for 70% less than it normally costs to hire developers. Check us out at fullscale.io. So, Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, Matt.
So the first time I ever saw your name, knew who you were, was about February or March or something last year. And you posted something on LinkedIn about, I just created this new thing. I think it's going to be worth $1 billion, and here's why. Or it said something like that. And this shows up on my LinkedIn feed. I'm like, I don't know this dude. I'm like, what in the world is this guy talking about? He is bananas. $1 billion. This guy's lost his mind. And I start looking at what you're doing. I'm like, well, this actually sounds kind of cool. He got my attention. And I went and signed up for it. So I was one of your first people that signed up for it, for RB2B back in, it was like March or something like that.
Yeah.
Does that sound right, time frame wise?
Yeah, we launched in March. Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all. Thank you for reading the content, and then thank you for taking action. I want to thank both of those things because they're equally important. I mean, the content part of this is it's so valuable that people read it and get value out of it and think this is interesting.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about that today. But I think for starters, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, your story, and what RB2B actually is? Because people are like, what is that, Matt? We don't know.
Yeah, so I have been a SaaS founder for like 10 years now. My first startup was stuck at 3 million ARR. I was able to sell that for $10 million, which was great. It was bootstrapped. Then the second one is called retention.com. It's currently at maybe 21.8 million ARR. And I bootstrapped it just like with the funds of the other company. And it's still operating. It sells to e-commerce companies. And then RB2B is the thing that I'm focused on now. Launched it 5 months ago on the anniversary of the 5th month birthday. We crossed 2 million ARR, which is wonderful. We have 5 employees. It does person-level website visitor identity. What does that mean? It means somebody can hit your site, they can not do anything, and we'll push their LinkedIn URL to a Slack channel 100% free.
And we're using it. We've been using it on and off since then and kind of playing around with it. And honestly, I'm still on the free version. I'm not on the paid version.
Great.
You're gonna have to get me on the paid version still, but partly we don't have a lot of website traffic, so we're in a lower tier.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's like none of the other, there was this whole other class of company level website visitor identity tools, and they're valuable, but the question of how valuable they would be for a small, like a site with very little traffic is just, it's just an open-ended debate, right? If you take that off the table, then I think you have everybody using it, because who wouldn't want to know for free who's on their site?
Well, and yours is the only one I've ever seen that actually told you who. Like, I've seen a lot of them over the last like 10 plus years that use IP addresses or whatever and tell you like somebody from GE or somebody from Microsoft or whatever is on your website. And you're like, I don't know who from Microsoft is on my website. That's not super helpful.
Right. That is not super helpful. I just turned my screen off accidentally, by the way. So I need to get back in here. Okay. I'm back in.
Okay. No problem. We get the Slack alerts from your software every day, and about every day we get about usually one person that would be a really good qualified lead for us, like a really good targeted lead. Every day.
That's free. That's the best free product I've ever heard of in my life.
Yeah,
you've given me a targeted lead that I did not have before, who I know was on my website for free. That's
for
the
free.
best product. That's the best product I've ever heard of.
So back,
I'm a little biased, but
yeah,
like that is a crazy sentence you just said. I'm not paying
and
for this, and every day I get an ICP lead who is on my site for free.
and so going back to March or whatever, when you had this crazy post on LinkedIn, you're like, I'm gonna be a billionaire from this thing. Like I'm still believing it. I'm on the train. I'm still believing it. Are you still believing it?
So by the way, sometimes I use that word to get attention because it does.
It works.
You say the word billion, it gets attention. I
Yep.
made a docu-series about my journey last year called the $1 Billion Challenge, which I called that we were going to grow retention.com from 15 to 50 million ARR in 12 months because that's what it looked like. And we only grew it to 21. Basically, long story short, the TAM was a lot smaller than I thought. And the churn problem that I thought we would solve by focusing on a super tight ICP basically only reduced by 20 or 25%. So what happens there? Your leaky bucket dynamic in small TAM just stops you. So anyway, this product, and so it's like the problem with retention.com was high churn product category, high churn buyer persona, small TAM.
All e-commerce. Right?
Yeah. So, but it's like we can only make a very small slice of that universe successful with the actual technology. That's the problem. The B2B product is quite different because the free version is valuable for almost everyone. Right. So, and the TAM is enormous. The TAM is basically anyone who the purpose of the website is to get somebody on the phone. They should be using this.
Which could even be a plumber, honestly.
Yeah,
like it could be like, I know Adam is on my website.
Yeah.
He must have a plumbing problem. Like it could be a lot of things, actually.
Yeah, totally. So it's an enormous TAM, which is good. It's still a high churn product category. Whenever you're selling leads as a SaaS, that's just way higher churn than basically anything else. It's in the current go-to-market. Like I love SMB and massive user bases. They don't get the valuation credit that enterprise companies do, but I think they might someday just because like the value of a massive user base is so immense and like you can sell other go-to-market tools into it or whatever. And it's like, it just works really well with my content strategy because my content strategy has a ton of reach and scale.
Yeah.
And then the freemium go-to-market motion has a ton of reach and scale and they kind of like work off of each other. So yeah, this is all a really long-winded answer. Is our B2B going to be a unicorn? I'm worried about churn stalling it out at like 25 or 30 million ARR. But I think when it does, we're only going to have 10 employees. So like, I think it'll be shooting out 15 or 20 million bucks, which like, I don't need a unicorn if that's my second business is doing that, right? Like I already have another business that's shooting out 7. If this other one is shooting out 15, I'm happy to not, I'm happy to not be unicorn status. That's A-okay with me.
So by the way, not many SaaS companies ever make any money at all. It feels like.
But we were just talking about this.
We were just talking about that.
They should though. You know.
So the question is, I mean, we could go off on a whole tangent on that topic probably, but you think the reason is they're all just hell-bent on growth? Is it they overhire, they overspend? What is it you think that is usually the problem?
All of the above. At the end of the day, look, we sell to the Shopify, the very top of the Shopify ecosystem on the e-com side. I think that they are so much better marketers than B2B. It's not even funny because they have to make their businesses grow on so much smaller of a margin.
Right.
And there's so much other complications involved, right? So I think venture capital and still what they say is acceptable. Like I was reading, there's this company Warmly who's in our space. Okay, if you're founders of SaaS companies, then this will mean something to you. He's like about to hit 1.3 million ARR with his SaaS tool. He just raised $6 million. He has already hired 11 go-to-market people, and he's looking to hire another 6, and he had 26 people already, right? I'm growing 5 times as fast. I just lapped him. I have a team of 5. In the next 12 months, I'll hire 1 person. Right? Like, I'm telling you it's possible because I'm doing it. I'm doing it, right? I'm not only doing it, I'm showing everyone that, by the way, go to rb2b.bearmetrics.com. You can see our public SaaS metrics dashboard. I want everybody to know that this is possible. I did it with my last company. I bootstrapped 12 million ARR with 6 people, right? Like if you can do that, you can do anything you want afterwards, right? So I think I think it's a problem of standards, to be totally honest. What venture capital says is a business worth growing, and the metrics that they encourage you to scale people around are completely unacceptable, in my opinion. And I just think so. There's so much of this that I just hate, right? Like who's telling this kid, this Warmly CEO who's 26, to go do that? Whoever it is, they're a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Like that's not going. I can tell you right now that is not going to work. I'm sure you probably think the same thing. Like when you're growing 10% a month and you have 20 million of revenue, that's really good. When you're growing 10% a month and you have less than $1 million of revenue, that's not good at all. That's not product market fit, right?
Yeah.
So they're telling him to scale headcount before he has product market fit on a brand narrative that he just made up that is ridiculous, right? Like, so he's just representative of what I think the problem is, right?
What do you think? Is there something about your business that has enabled you to be so lean? Like, do you actually have other contractors and stuff like that, or you really only have the 5 or 6
I just
employees?
run companies that way, right? Like if you look at my website and you look at his, like what I'm selling is, it has a searing level of clarity,
right,
and simplicity. And he takes 5 hours to onboard people. You can get up and running in under 2 minutes with my product, and it's giving you leads in 5 minutes, right? Like, I just think I have a lot of experience, and I know how to get stuff off the ground incredibly efficiently. And a lot of that is a combination of a great product and great marketing, right? Like,
well, your product is also easier to set up and use, right? It doesn't require as much support, professional services, all this kind of stuff, right? It's an easier turnkey product. And
totally.
That's part of it, right?
For sure. But like, why is his that complicated?
Well,
you know what I mean? Like it goes back to like, how did he start Warmly? He saw Qualified. He thought that they were successful, but they're not. They raised $100 million and they only got to 20. He literally copied their product, which, by the way, in my 20s, I was doing that kind of shit too. That's not how you grow. And then he made his price 25 to 50% of Qualified. And that was the plan. Then he added a person-level website visitor identity tool. And now he goes after my LinkedIn engagement and he says, we do the same thing. And then he gets people on a demo and he tries to sell them Drift plus Zoom Info, right? Okay. Like that's not, right? Like... And then
I think part of the point here is simplicity, right? Selling a simple product that's easy to scale.
Yeah, like, you know, yes. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
Well, so like my first company was kind of the opposite of this. We sold a CRM product. And so I had 50 employees that were trainers. I had dozens of people that had to build websites for people and onboard them and import CRM data and do data, like all this stuff. It was a lot more labor intensive. It wasn't able to be as like turnkey. Now my second company was much more turnkey. Like people go to our website, they sign up, they could download it, they use it. We didn't have to talk to them. Like that's the dream, right? If you can do that. And those are the kinds of businesses that can really, really scale, just like yours. And then it's like, do you hire a bunch of people to try and do more sales and do marketing, and it's very expensive? Or as you have figured out, there are other ways to do sales and marketing that are probably a lot leaner and more scalable.
So my argument with this, everyone should try to bootstrap 10 million ARR thesis, is that it will make a product that is so good if you can get it there bootstrapped in a lean way that
focuses you to be simple.
Yeah, there's ruthless prioritization that must occur. Right. If you keep a super lean team and a kind of very simple product until 10. At 10, by the way, if you're throwing off $3 million, go raise $50 million and scale out your go-to-market team. Right. But like the problem is, the second there's even a hint of traction, the vultures are on the sidelines trying to get you to do stuff that you shouldn't do, in my opinion. Right? Like someone is telling Max to go do that. Like there's no way he just thought that like with the amount of momentum that he had, oh yeah, like the solution to this is hiring 15 more people for this business that like is clearly not really working, right? Like
Do you
Yeah.
think the
I
other
mean,
mistake is that too many founders are so focused on the exit instead of running a long-term profitable successful business that kicks off cash and they just own the business? Like, seems like everybody's like, they don't care about that at all. They're going for the exit, going for the exit. Where here you own a business that makes millions of dollars a year. I own a business that makes millions of dollars a year. I don't want to sell it. Why would I sell it?
dude,
Why would you sell something that
that's
makes millions of
what
dollars
I'm
a
saying.
year?
It's like I can't. I've never done this because I could never sleep at night if I were burning money. I've never burnt money in my life. Well, aside from the very beginning when I was self-funding my
Sure.
my first startup, right? But like after that, it was always like I want to be operating with a margin, like so. No one thinks about it this way, right? But like to me, it's so obvious. It's like you don't have to have that much ARR to pay yourself $1 million or more, right? In order to do that in the venture-backed world, it doesn't exist. Literally, 30 million ARR startup CEO makes an average of 250K cash. I
Because
don't even
like
know
it's
how
all
you,
stock. It's all stock. You'll make money
I don't even know
later.
how you live on that, right? But like, those are founders of those companies. A company they started, a 30 million ARR SaaS is one of the most successful companies in the
I
world.
had one,
And yeah, and by the way,
and I
like,
made 120K a year.
yeah, and
But we
that's
didn't
just
have
like,
VC. We were just investing in growth. Like
yeah,
we were eating hot dogs, paying steak. Like that was the
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we were
yeah.
just trying to grow.
So like, do you think you could have oriented it differently?
We could have. We could
And
have slowed down.
yeah,
Could
what do
have
you
took the
think
foot
about
off the
that now?
accelerator.
Yeah, what do you
I
think
mean,
about that?
I you
Like,
know
could you have made $10 million and
we
just sort of
absolutely we
plateaued out
absolutely
at
could have.
25 or something like that?
But you hear those stories of people are like, man, I wish I had this problem and we were growing so fast and we didn't know how to keep up with it. I'd love that problem. I had that problem. It was actually a
Yeah,
nightmare. Like we were literally trying to hold on to the rocket ship that was like
yeah,
going into orbit. We were in the right place at the right time and it just took off and we were just trying to hold on. And it would have been hard to kind of, slow that down. And it was in the recession to 2008, 2009, but we had a product that because of the recession, it helped us. So we
yeah,
were taking off. But absolutely at some point in time, we were doing 30 million, 40, if we got to 40 million a year, whatever, we could have slowed down like, hey, fine. Hey, we're going to prioritize making 5 million a year or whatever, pick the number,
yeah,
right? And be like, pay ourselves some more. Even if we slow down a little bit, we don't care. Take the foot off the accelerator a little bit. But we were in go, go, go mode. But looking back, I think to the point, like, I kind of wish I never would have sold the company. Like that
yeah,
company today, I think does well over 100 million a year in revenue. It is a number one product in that industry
yeah,
by far, crushes every competitor in the industry 15 years later. It'd be great to still own that thing.
right,
But
yeah,
everybody's goal is to sell these things.
right,
And then
totally,
usually whoever buys them destroys them. Like the
yeah,
company that we sold it to basically stopped all innovation. Like if you go look at that product from 15 years ago, a lot of the screens, the UI, it looks exactly the same. It looks like some crappy design that I did 15 years ago, and they
yeah,
never changed it.
yeah,
But that's where most innovation goes to die, is in these
totally.
big companies.
So by the way, you're very lucky that you sold. Not many people are able to sell for a positive outcome, right? Like, especially now, a lot of these deals that are happening, they're like below the value of the
Yeah.
preferred, and like no one hears that, right? It's like so on the venture
I know
track,
people that went through that.
yeah, on the venture track, which everyone is on, if you are a CEO, you are being paid at a level to where if your wife does not have income at the same level that you do, and you live in an A or B city, it's like hard to even figure out how to like make it all work, right?
You're
Like
kind of a
it's
slave to the whole thing.
yeah, totally. And then there's one way out, which is super low probability. Whereas like this thing that I'm trying to share because I've done it twice, so I know it's possible, right? Like you could have called the first one a fluke. Like I'm doing it again right before your eyes, right? I want everybody to know it's possible. Like I will make millions of dollars a year, every year. I will wake up one day and say, I don't want to own this thing anymore. I will be able to that day go sell it for 50 to $100 million to some private equity firm that's just going to lever it up or whatever. And it's not a $1 billion exit, but me and my co-founders own 100% of the equity.
Yeah.
Whereas like buy the unicorn, you're 5 to 10, right? Like max,
Yeah.
right? So it's like the probability weighted adjusted financial outcome for me playing this game. And by the way, I'm just going to keep starting these things, right? With the cash that I'm getting from it. It is immensely higher. It is immensely higher, right? Than that venture track. And like my life is just a lot more comfortable in the meantime, you know?
Do you
I
think some
hope,
degree it's focusing on like, hey, I'm okay to do this a little slower? You know, it takes an extra 60 days, an extra 90 days. I don't really care. It's less stress and more profitable that way.
so like I'm looking at our B2B right now and it grew 64% in the last 30 days. It's off kind of a low number, but it just crossed 2 million ARR. I don't
Right.
think any venture-backed startups are growing faster than that. I've only heard of a few that have, right? AI,
There,
Jasper, ChatGPT, Deal did, Wiz did, whatever. Um, I think that growing faster is one of the myths that you get sold by both VC and private equity. I think sometimes it can help, but it has to be a very specific situation where you have your go-to-market totally dialed. Like and no one does, right? Like, so I'm saying like, if you're a second or third time founder and you've like learned all of the lessons the hard way doing this before, right? Like I've fucked this up a couple times, right? Like,
mhm.
uh, uh, I'm pretty sure that if I ever raised money, it would be because I was so positive that I knew exactly what was going to happen when I deployed this, that 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 would be the situation. I don't think most people who take money are in that scenario.
So using Full Scale as an example, we have 308 employees, over 10 million a year in revenue. If you came to me today and said, Matt, here's $5 million, grow sales and marketing, I wouldn't even know what to do with it.
Right.
I literally wouldn't know.
And by the way, like I think a lot of people are in that paradigm because outbound has gotten so weird. Like it's just not as easy as it used to be. So that's another problem. It's like, what are you going to do with the dough? So like, I'm not
Hire a
sure.
bunch of people.
Yeah. Like the way that I know to grow faster is to make the product better in terms of differentiation, adding
Focus
more
on
value to
referrals.
it, adding value to it, and creating a very disruptive offer, right? Like it's kind of from the internet marketing space, but I would encourage every SaaS founder to read $100 million offers by Alex Hormozy. And I tried to do that. If you go to my LinkedIn page and look at the LinkedIn banner, I think if you read that banner and you have a website, like what Hormozy says is you should have an offer that is so good that people would feel stupid not doing it, right? Identify your anonymous website visitors, push their LinkedIn profiles to Slack, 100% free. Go to rbdb.com. The absurdity of that offer itself creates virality, right? People can't even believe it. So like, that's the kind of thing that makes you grow faster, in my opinion, right? Now, if you get far enough and you have something that's that good, then like by all means, go raise $100 million and try to make a unicorn or whatever. But like in the beginning, you're gonna need something that good to get to 100 million anyway, right? It's like, and we almost started talking about this earlier, but like you said something along the lines of like the exit is the goal or the revenue is the goal. It's like, if people have output goals, then it just leads to these bad decisions rather than like focusing on the input that will lead to the output, right? Like meaning like the offer and the product and the like whatever. I just think that using capital to accelerate growth is not like, it's a tool. It can work, but that is not a sound way to run a business. The sound way to run a business is using your customers, your satisfied customers, to fund your growth, right? Like I just find that
Referrals,
impossible to argue
expansions.
with, right? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like that is responsible growth, and it just keeps you out of a lot of trouble.
So
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
referrals and expansion are awesome, and that's what has driven most of Full Scale's growth. But it's harder to scale. Like you don't control referrals, right? You can't
No.
like hire 3 more people and then the numbers go up. Like you don't really control the referrals. Like they just kind of naturally happen. So I would love to hear more from you about inbound led outbound, which I don't think I'd ever actually heard it called that until I saw you or a couple other people kind of mentioning that
Yep.
recently. I don't think it's not necessarily a new phenomenon, right? It's like, how do we do lead gen,
Yeah.
from identifying intent, identifying warm leads, and then reaching out to them. But I'd love to get your take on that and how, and more about cold outreach. And by the way, so at Full Scale, we've been trying to do some cold outbound email for the last couple months. And our response rate to that is less than 1%.
No, it's
Like
crazy.
it is,
like, and that's
it's awful.
Yeah.
And those are on warm leads, by the way. This is like warm contacts even, not cold. But love to get your take on this part of it.
So if you have I'll paint the dream scenario picture here, right? So like the sort of cataclysmic trend in response rates is what the problem is, right? And the question is, how do you get someone to respond to you when there's this problem of everyone sending more and more email every year and the spam filter is becoming like harder and harder, right? So I think it's like cold is just done. Like you need a very strong intent signal to go after. And then if you have a personal brand that has built a lot of trust with people, they'll open your email, So yeah, like the sort of core tenets of this thing, in my opinion, are, number one, it's like the better your core offer is, the better this is going to work across all channels, right? Because it's just, if you can have a core offer that hits people in the face, it just wins. And then the second part is like, if you think about demand generation in two camps, one is demand creation and one is demand capture. Kind of the old guard way, like BDRs used to be able to like sit in front of outreach and send cold emails, and that would actually like start creating demand. It would like create awareness, and that worked. I just don't think that is the case at all anymore. I think that is a demand capturing exercise, and demand creation is like what we're doing right now, right? So like to reorient your thinking towards trying to spend as much time as possible cross-pollinating other audiences in your space, and then making sure you plug that one-liner at the beginning and the end of all this stuff you're doing, right? So it's like digital and physical, true demand creation. It's very hard for people to do and dedicate their lives to because you cannot measure it. You can measure the demand capture part, which is like why people love sitting a bunch of people down and being like, oh, well, that person can produce 4 demos a week, so I'm going to hire 10 of them. And then they hire 10 of them and it doesn't work because the demand creation didn't get scaled along with it, right? So in the early stage, I would just be trying to do as much true demand creation as possible, and it takes on many forms, right? Like, you could create a LinkedIn Live event with a hook that is a related problem to your space, put ad spend behind it to your target market, get people to sign up for it, and then put them in a funnel, right? Like there's just all sorts of ways to uncover warmth and sort of only have like a very, very small team going after that warmth, right? Like, so that's kind of the idea. It's like the predictable revenue model is dead. How can you spend all of your energy on this true demand creation activity and then have somebody who's sitting there trying to like wrangle the people who sort of, show this intent or whatever. And RBDB is just part of it because it like uncovers people on the website,
Well, and you're doing a good job of this with thought leadership and posting on LinkedIn and driving demand in that way. And that's definitely one way to do it, right? And I think that's been really successful for you. Another way that people do it is with ads, right? Just a lot of paid media, a lot of paid ads, trying to get the right intent signals, and then trying to get the right paid ads to that laser focused people.
Yep.
Are there other ways to do this?
So like, I think we're in a world where creating great organic social media content, like if you can create, so like paid ads are one thing, they're always going to exist. It's the backbone of the internet, right? But people don't like them for the most part. It's like they just get shown something that they didn't really ask for. Thought leadership content, they love.
Right.
The thought leadership ad on LinkedIn. So like now all of a sudden you can put dollars behind something you already know works, right? Like you can take your top 5% of posts and you can put $10,000 behind each of them, right? Like, and it's just going to it's going to do everything that post did, like amplified in a way that is magically compounding that someone who cannot create a great organic social media post could never do unless they're able to harness a UGC motion like Clay, for instance, or Apollo or something like that, right? But I think there's so much power in being able to create content that your prospects actually want to read on your own, even if you didn't put ad spend behind it. And that's really one of the keys to be able to do this so efficiently. You know, you have to learn how to do it at some point, or you have to learn how to harness it, you know?
Is LinkedIn the number one channel for you at this point?
It's the only channel. I mean,
So you
for
have
the
about
B2B tool,
92,000 followers or something.
yeah. Yeah. So,
And then
so like,
how much do you do with the thought leader ads?
I have two businesses, by the way. The e-com business, it's not LinkedIn at all. It's an in-person sales motion where they're like ABMing, you know, a 1,400 person account list to physical events that starts a sales demo motion, right?
Okay.
Totally annual contracts, totally different. And
Totally
this is like zero touch PLG, you know, freemium, like it's the opposite. I just started running thought leadership ads last month. We spent $10,000 and it looks great. You know, it's like hard. I have heard that the metrics will not. I was actually wake surfing with Chris Walker this morning, who knows a lot about this. He's
Okay.
like he owns a demand gen agency for B2B. He's like the metrics will not start feeling it until like $100,000 a month or more of ad spend. Yeah, there's like a long way to go with expanding and like. I'm just really excited about it. But it's like some of the posts don't even have CTAs in them.
Right. Well, but they help drive followers, right? That's the other thing. When I've done them, they drive a lot of followers.
They drive followers. Now LinkedIn has this magic thing where it says visit my website. That's just like driving traffic, right? So like we're trying to keep, it's like the organic program works so well that it's like, how do we just take exactly the posts, don't change them at all, don't even put a CTA in them, and try to shove it in front of as many people as humanly possible, right? It's like, I don't even want to look at the analytics that closely because it's like, okay, we're getting a $20 view through conversion to free and a $70 click through conversion to free, but only 20% of our posts have a CTA, right? So like if we started optimizing for more CTA in the post, then we could probably get that click through conversion rate down. But I'm not sure I want to because really the organic program is what's crushing it so hard anyway, right? It's really a weird deal.
Well, and the hidden value is you're also building a personal brand and the thought leadership, and you have somebody like me who has been following you since March. Like I saw one of your first big posts, like about the $1 billion thing, right? And I've told other people about your product. I have you on the podcast. I said hi to you at a conference. You know, and that's also how you just create a following, right? You're creating a following and you create referrals through that thought leadership and through that personal brand. But it's hard to measure any of it. You have no idea what works and how to, and you famously have talked about that on LinkedIn. You're like, I go on everybody's podcast. Thank you for being here. And all this different stuff. Like, I don't really know what works, but I'm just trying to be everywhere and I'm trying to talk to many people that will listen.
Yeah, that's the thing that drives marketers nuts. I'm like, nothing that I spend time on, I can actually measure. Right.
And I'm the same way. I have no idea.
And they're just like, oh my God, well, how do you like whatever? And I'm like, this is literally blind faith. Yes, I measure things. Yes, I look at our annual recurring revenue and our churn metrics, but there is absolutely no way that I can delineate where any of that is directly coming from. Yeah. I know that it's all coming from this, but I don't know which part of it it's coming from, you know?
But you grew $1 million in the last few weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
God bless it.
Well, you know, I feel the same way. Like I do this podcast, I write a newsletter, I post on LinkedIn every day. Again, it's really hard to know. I get anecdotal evidence. You know, maybe once a week somebody will say, oh, I read your thing, or I did the, you know, whatever, I like this one thing. I'll hear from like one person. That's it. No idea.
Yeah.
But do you get the Startup Hustle newsletter?
Oh man, I don't. I'll sign up for it though. I'm gonna put it on my list.
All right. So you probably do, because when we scheduled this, you probably got subscribed for it. But that's the thing. Wait. It's hard to know. It's so hard to know. Yeah. And you just do this stuff, you put it out there, and you just never know. But somehow it works. Like it works, but it's so hard to measure. I don't know. It's frustrating. But can you solve that problem? That's the next $1 billion problem.
Yeah, but like I just think that like so much of the most important stuff in business cannot be measured. Right? Yeah. Like just what I was talking about, like comparing my business to Warmly, it's like you can't measure the impact of this searingly clear freemium model versus the way he's going to market. You can measure it's working better, but you can't measure how much more effective that headline and that CTA is, right?
Yeah.
Just in general for like the word of mouth that comes off of it, right? Like, um, you
So
know,
there's a
you,
couple,
yeah, go ahead.
couple of things I'd love to ask you about before we wrap this up. I think you've done a great job of sort of picking battles in public, like even with, you're talking about Warmly or
Yeah.
Sixth Sense. Like I don't know if you post like Sixth Sense, that's the name of the other company, right? Posted about stuff about them, like,
Yeah. They
and that
cease
kind
and
of really
desist.
helped you go
Yeah,
viral,
totally.
right? Like we're picking those battles and fighting the battle in public.
Yeah. I mean, look, so social media loves conflict in general, right?
Yeah.
Like in LinkedIn, as Devin Reed, this like content guy told me, he's like, on LinkedIn, if you can be inappropriate, it will cut through so hard because people are acting like they act at work, right? So I was given this opportunity, and they're just, fortune favors the bold, right? Like no question about it. Like Sixth Sense is the industry leader kind of in what we do. They did this thing where they kind of did a scummy thing where they tried to get us to renew. I bought their product to like compare it to RB2B
Yeah.
basically. And like they tried to get us to renew by saying the price was going up by 300%. And they call back the next day and I'm like, with all of the pain I had been feeling at retention.com, I was like, fuck these guys. You know
It's not
what?
a very honest
So
thing to do.
yeah, I wrote this like kind of funny but like nasty shit post about how they did this because they're afraid of me and they didn't want me using their product or whatever. So then by some act of God, they sent a cease and desist on a Thursday. So I was like, oh, this is so, and it took like a day for like, no, I posted on Thursday. They sent a cease and desist on Monday night. So talked to my lawyer on Tuesday. And I was like, dude, I want to put the cease and desist on LinkedIn. Like,
And he's like, no.
he's
Probably.
like,
They're like, don't do that.
he's like, I'm like, what's my maximum liability? He's like, well, it's bullshit. They could maybe get you on a terms violation. Like all in, we're talking about like maximum 300 grand over a few years of legal fees. Right. There's no way you're getting judged against. So I was like, done. I'm totally happy, like with the effect that this post will have because of how bananas that is for some guy to just like do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did it. I mean, it was a bonkers post. I was like, last night, Sixth Sense sent me a cease and desist over a viral LinkedIn post. Here's what they demanded I do. And it was absurd. It was like, take the post down, write an apology and tag 436 people who all hate Sixth Sense, right? It's like, so then I just like rewrote the shit post and then it went bananas. So what it accomplished is like, it went from people knowing my LinkedIn content to all of Sixth Sense customers being acutely aware of exactly what we did, right? Like, which is amazing, and it's just like built the brand too. Cause like a big part, I think my biggest champions are early stage founders and they look at that and they're just like, that's amazing, right? Like never in a million years would I have thought that is a way that I could respond to a cease and desist. And I saw another one to this other company, Wonderkin, that somebody did last week. That was exactly the same thing as what I did. So it's great. Cease and desist are bullshit. It's like a bully tactic. It's like, fuck you, man. Like, you're not going to sue me over this. Like, this is just crazy. Like,
so you do a great job posting all this stuff on LinkedIn. I'm curious, how much help do you have with coming up with the ideas and copywriting and all that, or how much of that do you do yourself?
Yeah, so I'm pretty new at the game. I started September 2022 was my first. Okay. October 2022 was my first post. I have a consultant named Alec Paul, who's very good. I think he's probably the best. He's very expensive. He does not write for you, but he's like, helps with idea generation. He just knows LinkedIn. So he's got 5 or 6 other clients like me, like SaaS CEOs that are in B2B. And he just knows the game. He knows what works. He knows when to put out certain posts, whatever. So we do an hour of idea generation every week. And then there's like another 30 minutes of like, we do a lot of call booking through my profile and like we're trying to accomplish different stuff. So another 30 minutes about whatever we're trying to accomplish with that. And then I chunk the writing. I'll write 3 or 4 at once. And then I have another talking head recording session that's like another hour during the week. So that's kind of all the LinkedIn. Like the big amount of time that I spend is on stuff like this. Cause like I'm now in this position, like I view this as like a dinner with prospects that I didn't have to leave my office to go to.
Yes.
That's exactly how I look at it. So, cause it wouldn't be like this with my other business, but like what I speak about as it relates to my journey is so deeply intertwined with the product story that I cannot sell, and people will go look to see what I do, you know? So it's just this perfect combination. So that's really the time suck. And that's what I'm spending. When I say I spend 4 days a week on content, it's like mostly this, some writing, some video shooting, and a little idea generation. And then Mondays are all internal meetings. But I feel the reason that I'm doing it is because I feel an obligation now that I have an audience that everyone else wants to take these inbound podcast requests. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, it's in such it's such a position of good fortune, because I've tried to go on a podcast tour before. It's hard. When you're some no name, like a year and a half ago I tried. Like when you're a no name that has no audience, people have no reason to have you on their show, right?
Yeah.
Now it's the other way around, and I feel like, look, here's what it comes down to. There's a 0 response rate. How are you going to sell 10 years from now? I tried to create like my original inkling with RBDB was like, it'll be a lower churn buyer persona if I start with mid-market, and I'll be able to because I have a brand with these people because of LinkedIn. So I'll just do it that way. Then the content was working so well. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to future-proof this thing. How do you future-proof this thing? One-to-many selling from a founder brand and a freemium offer. It's all selling itself, right? Like, let's see how far we can push that. Right. Like, and the nice thing about not having investors is when that stalls out, like there's no one telling me to go hire a bunch of expensive go-to-market people to try to get it going again. It's like, all right, I'm going to start a new business now. You know, I got this one to 30. I got the last one to 22. They kind of stalled out with churn. Like, what's the next one?
Well, I really appreciate having you on. And honestly, I actually would have loved to have you on the podcast. So I'm like, I don't know if he would actually come on my podcast. And actually,
Sure
when you
will.
posted that on LinkedIn, that's when I reached out. I'm like, hey, man, I don't know if you remember me. I saw you at SaaS Open. I'm taking you up on this thing. I want you on the podcast. So thank you so much for doing this today.
Dude, it was a great chat. You're a good interviewer. I'm not surprised, having done over 1,000 episodes at your company.
Are you going to SaaS Open again?
I'm going to go. I decided last night that I was going to go. I was really on the
Okay.
fence because my wife's having a kid. Well, I'm having, I guess, whatever. We are having a kid. I don't know how you said that. On September 27th, and SaaS Open is like the 4th to the 6th. But I think that I think it's still fine. It's New
Okay.
York to Austin. If she goes into labor, I can be home by the time she'll have the kid. Like, you know.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, congrats, and I will see you there. So I will see you there, and it was a great event. If anybody's listening, SaaS Open's a great event. Check it out. There's still tickets available. They weren't that expensive when I got mine, so it was a great event in New York.
I think it's under 1,000, right? It's like
Yeah, I got the early bird. It was really cheap.
It was something. Cool.
All right, again, this was Adam Robinson. Definitely follow him on LinkedIn. He only has 92,000 followers. If you're not one of them, you should be one of them. Produces really entertaining content. Very good. rb2b.com. Check it out. I've been using it since March or whatever. I get one free awesome lead almost every day. So thank you, Adam, for free awesome leads.
Hey, man, that makes me so happy. You know? That's just a
All right.
crazy value proposition. The fact that you're telling people that is insane. Like, who doesn't want free awesome leads, right?
Yep.
So,
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
thanks, man. Thanks, Matt.
Take care.